This is Marla Bolbear. I'm the Executive Director of Lakota Youth Development here in Milks Camp community on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Central South Dakota. It's a beautiful, cloudy November day, and I'm happy to be able to share with you one of the visions that we've had for our organization and for our facilities here. We started with an idea that was discussed a few years ago when we attended a local foods conference in Spearfish. And we had an opportunity to visit with other Native attendees of the conference. And we'd heard about something that was being talked about in social media, and information was being passed around about a thing called a Wallapini, or underground garden, or winter garden. And so we came back, and this idea continued to develop until we found the right partner to help us see it to fruition. So we now have our Maka Ohlate Owoju in Lakota is what we call our winter garden, because it is a garden that is in the ground, under the ground. And so this is something that we've been so excited to share with you and finally have the chance. So come along with me, let's go check it out. Come on in. As you're beginning to see, we have a rectangle size indoor garden that has about a 12 by 20 planting area on the inside. And we have the ground. We started with a hole in the dirt that was taken for other purposes. And so we didn't have to start by actually digging the hole. It was something that was already existed. And so we refined it. We looked at the angle of the sun and designed it so that actually had the best angle to take in as much sunlight in the wintertime as possible. So you want to factor that in if you're going to build an underground garden, is how are you setting the roof? Because we have here the polytarp that is a special greenhouse material. There's not one screw or nail in it. It's all held in place by aluminum and wires that snap in a channel that hold it in place. And we're so pleased that so far it's withstood the 60 and 70 mile an hour winds that we've already had yet this fall. So we're really hoping that we've picked the right materials and the right design. So we also have done a lot of work aside from the roof, is preparing the ground itself. So it may just look like we're just walking into and walking on the ground itself, but in actuality, we've prepared this so that it has drainage. We put in big stones all along through here, and then we added gravel, and then we added a fabric mesh over a corrugated drainage pipe that goes the length of the garden for drainage. This is important so that when we have, if we should have a leak from one of the water tanks, if something would happen to the roof and there would be a leak, there would be a way for the water to drain. So we've created that, and that took a lot of time. You'll see we did leave some stepping stones to walk on just for our convenience. And so here we have our watering system. Because if you think about it, well, we can keep the plants warm, but how are we going to have water that doesn't freeze? The only way to do that is to have it inside the garden. So we have found 55-gallon water barrels, and these that I think are 250-gallon water tanks. And all of these were found for us for a little bit of money, either through being gifted or Craigslist, and finding them. Some were even donated. So we wanted to make this underground garden actually designed in a way that it would be doable for families, doable for small communities, so that everyone has an opportunity to see themselves growing their own food all year round. That's really, especially during these days, that survival and self-sufficiency are a growing issue on people's minds. And especially for those of us that live in food deserts, that we need to create other ways of us getting healthier, less chemically treated food, and this is a natural way to do it. So we also, since this is our experimental year, we keep our logbook. So our logbook has dates and times and temperatures. So we track the temperature. We track the temperature of and when we water, so that we're able to know how much water usage we'll have, how often we need to water, what the plants will tolerate in temperature. So come along with me. As you can see, we have a lot of vegetables, and we're growing root vegetables and leaf vegetables. Because the wintertime sun is so fleeting for us, and certainly we don't have the duration of the sun that we would in summer, a lot of fruit plants would not do well because they need a lot of sun to be able to bloom and to bear fruit. But root vegetables and leaf edibles really don't need a lot of sun once they've sprouted, once they've started their growing process. So that's what we're focusing on. And we're starting to transplant them here. So you see our horse tubs that we've repurposed, our lick tubs that we had mineral for our horses. We even had a horse tank that wasn't being used, so we took it. We have some pots there, and yes, they were already had holes in them, so we're not making holes in new pots. So those of you that like to repurpose and save things, you can really look at what you wouldn't use in your regular garden might just work perfectly in an underground garden. So come along with me, and I'll show you. We've been tracking. We have a mark on the side, the water level, so that we can show how fast we're using the water. We can track that. We also have our drainage system. Out this door, there's an opening here that the drainage system has been trenched, and is trenched several yards down the hillside, so that if this would fill up with water for whatever reason, the water has a place to drain. That's essential. So not a lot of high-tech tools were needed to create this. Once the initial shaping of the underground location was done, there was a lot of hand labor, shovels and hands, and so we really want to shout out to Paul. And I want to show you, this is a high-tech device that was used, and we're really thinking of bronzing it, Paul, because this is what we came up to, figured out to use to fill the continuous sandbags. Those were all done by hand. The 9 feet of sandbag wall that you've seen is really a result of a handful of strong men and using some really low-tech but helpful tools. And so I want to shout out to all of our helpers that made it possible. From Paul to Michael, Russell, Corey, and then we had all of us that lend a hand as much as we could. Tyler, Wichoni, Lauren, and of course our local carpenters, Charlie and Nate. So everyone had lent a hand as much as they could. And our youth are now been given the keys, so to speak, to our new Maka Ohlate Owoju. So we're really happy that you're here. I know there's a lot of questions So we're looking forward to our question and answer session, and hope you like the tour. Thanks.